Joining me now on the Women's Basketball Podcast is Coach of the Tar Heels, Courtney Banghart, coming off a trip to the Sweet 16. Let's start here. Everyone saw you chatting up with Michael Jordan at the football game. How do we get him back in Carmine?
I mean, I literally said to him in that suite, I said, "You look like it's a women's game." And he said, "I hear it's a thing." And I said, "Oh, it's a thing." And so, I think obviously he's got a lot of pressure on his time. I think we got to have some suites probably. We'll get him there.
Since you mentioned your kids, any tips for me as a first-time dad?
I know people say this, it goes too fast. Mitch, goes way too fast. Mine are 11 and 9, and the fact that you've got that little nugget he wants to just sleep on your chest, like you'll love every stage of it, but don't rush into the stage.
Yeah, sounds good. Flipping to kind of your roster this year, yeah. I was just kind of looking at it, and it feels like you have a loaded backcourt just in terms of depth. Yes. And I think, figuring out the rotations and playing time and all that is going to be a problem that you're not going to be mad about having, considering what you went through a couple years ago, down to 2 scholarship guards in the NCAA tournament. But, Renaya, Laney, the 3 freshmen back there, how do you feel like they all bring a little something different and give you some different looks?
Yeah, I think we'll be better at more facilitating decision-making, scoring guards. And they can all play together. You can go together and have approach the 4 spot and play four of your kind of elite guards. And so, they all have a little bit different excellence in them, but most importantly, they can play together. And so I think we'll put pressure on the defense collectively, right? Which I think will be good.
Yeah. Losing Alyssa, obviously a big blow. Yes. I was wondering if it kind of softened a bit by getting a player at her position like Nyla Harris, who has so much experience in this league.
Yeah, so much game experience, right? Game pressure matters. We have a lot of players with 8 returns feels like a lot, but not a lot of them have game pressure experience, right? So they have availability and reliability. And that's what our non-conference is going to be about, building reliability. But Nyla Harris brings not only game experience and league experience and league experience, she has that kind of wider tape that characterizes, and so she's mobile, she's versatile, she's got physicality, a lot of things that goes abroad. So it does soften it a bit. And then of course with Blanca and Sierra, and we've got some sides too.
Yeah.
It's just they don't have a lot of game pressure. Right? Their maturation is really important.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Blanca and Sierra, Maria Goktan now moving on, she's playing overseas professionally. She was huge for you as a rim protector, as an inside scorer. How have you kind of challenged those two to kind of step up and maybe try to fill her shoes?
Yeah, they're probably going to have to do it a little bit differently. I mean, Maria was one of the more elite rim finishers, and she played really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes with how hard Alyssa played, you kind of take that for granted. But these are guys, obviously with Lexi and Grace, they're competitive motors. And so we still are kind of building that part of our foundation. And then, Blanca and Sierra look better on the perimeter. They're obviously big and giant, can finish and close. They'll be able to stretch the defenses more than we have been able to. We should give more space for attacking in those guards who've been, kind of playing around down for so long. So that will be a bit different, but yeah, their maturation, their reliability, their ability to pass. Part of what it's happening.
Yeah. You one of your games this season against Duke is going to be on ABC, which is, I feel like, a huge stage for not only the rivalry in the ACC, but also the TV folks chose you and chose this game to put on TV. What does it say about where the program is at, where you've brought it to, that you're getting showcased on this kind of national stage?
Yeah, it's so true. I just had goosebumps on my arm. If I think about this 6 years ago to where we are now, and obviously the rivalry has an enormous spotlight on it. But ABC is a lot of people are fighting for that window and that channel, and so it's an enormous pride to carry that into that game for both programs, and we owe it to the growth of our games and to our.
Yeah, you added a player kind of pretty late in the summer from Russia in Liza. Lisa. Okay.
Yes.
First, what can you tell us about kind of her experience and the impact that you think she'll have?
So cool. So she came to us, like I said, from Russia, and obviously getting into Carolina's international is hard anyway. And then When that finally happens, the whole visa process starts, which is a totally different journey, especially with where we are in our government in Russia. And so she actually didn't get here until after classes started. It was one of those where you are you fly through. You can't fly. She had to go to Serbia, live there for a week to try to get a visa. Finally got one. If you get a visa in Serbia, you can't fly through the EU country. So we had to fly her through Turkey to then get to Chicago. And then because classes had already started, if they could have turned her away to the border and said, no, the law is that if you're here on a student visa, you have to be here when school starts. They let her through, and the rest is history. And so she's only been here 5.5 weeks. And God, she's gotten better and better. She has a real European flair to her game, or international flair, I should say, in that she's got great touch, great versatility, good length, and can play positionless.
Yeah.
But the physicality of the game, the speed of the game, is here, right? So those are areas she's going to continue to grow in. But she's too tall. She's long and tall. You know, she can put 2 hands on the rim. So she'll give us a little bit of rim protection too that we've lost.
Yeah, I was talking. It sounds like y'all aren't alone in terms of the international hurdles. I was talking to Megan Duffy. They added a player from Slovenia about the same time that y'all did. Is this, I guess, new or different this year, like because of the state that our government is in, who's in the White House, and the visa issues? It seems like there's a lot going on with trying to get players over here.
Yeah, so much so that none of my internationals, I've got a Brazil, a Finland, and a Russia, and none of them are going to go home for Christmas, right? And that's not because, I mean, I'd be happy to buy them a ticket, right?
Sure.
It's that I'm not sure they can get back in. So now that they're here, we're going to stay here and, hope that things kind of settle a little bit. But they know what they signed on for. They're here to come and play in our country and to learn this system and style. And, but yeah, it's a little bit different dynamic. Right?
Yeah. So Christmas at the Bangharts for
well,
them.
no, I'll actually be skiing.
Okay.
I'm in Northeast. I love to ski. And about 4 days I get to ski. So most likely probably Christmas at Sydney Parker being our local kid. But I think some of their families will come to them too.
Okay.
So, TBD.
Yeah. I know you're not the WBCA president anymore, but I'm going to ask you some big picture.
Best title in the game.
Some big picture questions. A lot of talk about NCAA tournament expansion lately. For, against, what are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to have a total stance because if it can increase more revenue, we're at a time when revenue matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it isn't going to recruit more revenue, it's going to actually incur more costs that you're taking from your revenue that you ultimately be able to give back to the athletes. So, it's a revenue thing for me, right? It's I think 64 is a big field, and I think that's has served us well. I'm not a realist where you have to keep things the same. I'm actually not change
Sure.
first. But I think we've got those people that are really looking at the revenue, and if that becomes you're just at home sites for that first, then it just feels like another game. I don't know. I think part of the tournament atmosphere is it has to feel new and different. And if you're playing just a one-off game, because we don't know exactly what the format's going to be. If it's going to be, Wilmington plays Elon at Wilmington, and it might not feel the same way, especially if it comes at a cost that's then going to ultimately be in the red line for revenue. So I don't know enough about the nuance of it to make decisions.
Yeah. It feels like every year we're saying this. We're in a new era of women's basketball, portal, NIL. Now rev share is here. The House settlement is passed, and people are figuring out how to deal with that. How are you dealing with it? I know you were kind of ahead of the curve in being one of the first women's programs to have a general manager.
Yeah.
I'm sure
we had done such a good job fundraising that we knew that how to understand the space. I needed someone to put a lot of time into it, right? I needed someone to understand that we don't know what the rules are going to be, but we know there's going to be lots of different revenue streams we want to make sure we're prepared for. And so Liz Roberts really hit the ground running, and just she has an undergraduate in sport management. She has a concentration in finance, and she has a graduate degree in sport management. So she really is well suited for the role and has really pulled together not only donor funds, but also external true NIL opportunities through brands and through individuals. That's made it the perfect time.
Yeah. ACC tournament. It's going to Georgia. First time it's been out of North Carolina in a long time. There was the 1 year with HB2 that I went to South Carolina, but out of this footprint, what do you think about going to Georgia and just in general the tournament moving around?
Yeah. As long as there's a fan base, right? We forget that I just saw Virginia Tech, the platform actually was getting, and they're 2.5 hours from here, Charlotte, right? We're 2.5 hours from here. It means NC State and Duke are 2.5 hours from here, which means, Clemson's, So whether it's here, Greensboro, Charlotte, I just, as long as there's fans, I don't care to play on the move, right? Because, honestly, at that time of year for college programs, it's just another city, another day, another game, right? But as long as there's fans, I know we want competitive equity, of course. No one's bigger promoter than me that has helped me win a tournament, by having it here. But I just, as long as there's fans, and if we think that we can do that in Atlanta, let's do it.
2028 Final Four is on a football stadium now. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Wow, right? I mean, I guess in that many years, 2 years, if it grows as much as the sport has in the last 2 years, heck yeah, right? And so it's just, what's so fun is that, you've been on the head of the curve on all these things. Like, the unthinkable is happening because the product is so darn good, right? And, it's just, I'm proud to be a part of the game at this time.
I wanted to ask you, I asked you, I think, over the summer about the double regional format, and that's here to stay now through 2031. It kind of feels like that might be for the best. Kind of editorializing here, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, think about NC State, for example. They were really good. They had Kune, and that team was really good. And they were in the higher seed, and they had to go play UConn in Albany. Right? And so I get it that you want the most fans there. What you're basically saying is you want the most fans there. Right? And so that was not fair to NC State necessarily, because those people had bought those tickets because they knew that UConn's going to be there because they're the seed on the Northeast, right? And so I do think we only did it for 1 year. Us playing Duke, we could have played in Greensboro, we played all the way.
Birmingham.
All the way in Birmingham. That's where the regional was. Like the super regional was. Like, okay. And so my hope is it becomes a destination for true basketball fans are buying tickets at the two regionals and picking one, regardless of who's there. They're going to watch that regional that year. Maybe the next year they watch the other one. But I hope we're at that stage where when we talk about wanting fans, that they're coming to the super regional. They're not just coming because it's the home team, or close to the home team. That's when the game grows. Right? I give it a chance to do it, right? So, yeah, if I'm, that's why I think to grow, you have to take some steps. I think this feels like a step.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of turnover in the conference this year in terms of players. Last year, the ACC brought back 14 of its 20 all-conference selections. This year, just 8 of 25. Now, a handful of those were 5 players who transferred to powerful programs outside of the ACC. Obviously, you had some players go pro or the WNBA or whatever. What do you make of that turnover? Is that just kind of, this is where we're at right now? This is the freedom of movement?
No, I think it was the league was, we were saying that on the way up. We were saying, let's just try to see who can guess the players that are coming from each school.
Yeah.
Last year, Mitch, I probably could have got home. This year, I don't know if I got any. And so, I think there was just that there was that special career in the ACC that's in the country, in the draft, etc. And now outside of 5 or so that transferred to a different conference because of whatever was happening on their campus. There was just a lot of graduation because we here and all that. We graduated from 2 5-year kids.
Yeah.
2 4-year kids. So, it might be in a different spot next year. Maybe next year, 20 of the 25 are back, right? So I don't really, outside of a few outliers, I think it's really just the natural progression of things. And so it's like we're playing UCLA this year. They brought everybody back, right? We're better to play them next year after they move there.
Well, except for E, who you have.
Right. And so we had this, we lost 65% on offense and defense. And they're going to lose all that next year, not this year. Right?
Sure.
So there's also just a little bit, it's just kind of the maturation and timing of how we work.
Yeah, I'll get you out of here on this. I mean, the preseason polls and stuff aren't out yet.
Yeah.
But I feel like the top 3 teams in the ACC are all going to be in your neighborhood. And, all 3 of you guys hosted last year. All 3 of you made the Sweet 16.
So cool.
And I know you've talked about this before, but, like, what is it like being in that dynamic where all of you are really at this level?
I think what it actually in some way does is it actually makes you a fan of the other 2 programs. You go from they're your bitter rival and it's like you just gotta try to you gotta say whatever you gotta say to bring people to the game. Right? You gotta act however you have to act so that people are interested in the storyline and they'll come and they'll show up. And now you're like, no, there's just people are coming anyway. So we can actually show our true colors. And it is a great respect as they do of these 3 programs. What we're doing in a small space, in a small radius of the world, in a basketball state, college state. I hope we've got some things to do to make up for what we lost.
Sure.
Right? But we're certainly proud to be in that group of people have discussed, and we'll just have to prove people right, I guess. But yeah, it's so cool for our area, and I think I hope people are tracking how aware of what it is to do. 3 and 16 from the
Yeah. Courtney Banghart, head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Thanks for joining the Women's Basketball Podcast.
Thanks for all that you do for our game.
Thank you.